Hello, everyone. It's Dr. Manjiri Nadkarni, Ayurvedic MD, registered holistic nutritionist, back today with another live. So, yes, it's been a long time. And last week I had like crazy issues with my tech. My laptop was breaking down. The tech had a lot of problems. Like, I don't know, it was just a disaster. So I was like, okay, the universe is telling me something. I need a break. So I just decided to take a break, and it's been really good. So I'm like, okay, I should get back now, and that's why I'm here. So we're going to talk about diabetes, and it's pretty interesting. We've been talking about sugar the week before. Last week we couldn't do a lot of sessions. We just did one session. This week we're going to talk about diabetes. We're also going to talk about how to maintain your blood sugar and have that balanced using food strategies in the session tomorrow. And in the session day after, we're going to talk about activities and lifestyle factors that can lead to, diabetes, as well as how to balance your lifestyle to balance your blood sugar. So this is what we're going to cover in the 3 days. I'm again playing with my schedule a little bit. The clinic also has been super busy, so back. I'm pretty much working most days now, and it's been busy, which is like really good, but it's been busy too, right? So welcome everyone. It's been a long time. Hello Uttamji, hello Ushaji. Thank you for being here. If you are watching this live, please, post a comment here. Let me know that you're here live. If you're watching this as a replay, you can put a hashtag as replay. At any given point of time, if you have any questions, you can post the questions, and please don't forget to tag me in your questions. So when you tag me in the questions, then I know that there's a question, because Facebook keeps changing certain things and the comment section has moved somewhere else, and that's why I end up losing a lot of messages. So if you have any questions, of course I can answer, any general questions for you. I'll be more than happy to answer those questions, right? So feel free to ask me any questions that you have. So we talk about diabetes, or diabetes mellitus is the full-blown epidemic. So it's not just something that's a disease we were talking about, or just something that people randomly talk about. It's something that has reached epidemic proportions, right? And it is really sad. So India is pretty much becoming, or it's already become the diabetic capital of the world. And not just a poor lifestyle, but a lot of stress is also one of the big causative factors of diabetes, right? So diabetes mellitus is the condition that we're going to discuss about. And we all know about someone who has diabetes. We all know somebody who's struggling with blood sugar, or we have a strong family history of diabetes. So I'm going to talk about a little bit about my story to give you an understanding. So my mom had type 1 diabetes, which has an autoimmune component to it. That's what they're studying now. My granny had diabetes type 1 as well, and she had it extreme, right? So she actually had to undergo amputation of her knee, like one leg right up to the knee, the other foot as well, because of diabetes complications. So it is one such disease that you don't only have a lot of external complications, but it's also going to weaken your defenses. It's going to weaken your immune system, and it can be silent for a long time, right? And when we talk about Ayurvedic medicine, now again, I cannot diagnose anyone, like I'm not talking about diagnosis, but for everyone, if you are leading a stressful life, if you are, going through a lot of stressors, you have a poor diet, you have a poor lifestyle, you're not exercising, right? If you're not someone who's active, please get your blood sugar checked with your family doctor, right? So everyone who's watching this, if you have not had your blood sugar checked in the past 1 year, please schedule a visit with your family doctor and get all your blood sugar parameters specifically done, right? And one of the things they see is called HbA1c. It's called glycosylated hemoglobin. So that shows how your blood sugar has generally been over a span of 3 months, right? So they look for a number, and those numbers will determine if it's borderline diabetes or if you are a full-fledged diabetic, or then they'll do some studies. So I cannot diagnose you, but get checked, right? Work with your family doctor, try to understand, what's going on in your body. And if you have symptoms where you're suddenly extremely hungry, and we're going to talk about diabetic symptoms today as well. So if you are having a lot of thirst, no matter how much water you drink, you're getting parched, you're still feeling parched, you have to get your blood sugar tested, right? And typically what I recommend today is, after the age of 35, right, try to get, like, especially if you're living in Canada, get your yearly physical in every single year. Go for your blood test, make sure everything's fine, because your body is your machine, right? Till they have your body, you can drive anywhere and everywhere. If your body breaks down, it's like your vehicle, right? So if your car breaks down, you're not going to drive anywhere. If your physically body breaks down, your soul cannot do anything without the existence of a physical body. So your body is extremely important and you have to take care of it. So hello Anya, nice to see you as well. So please, if you are watching this, if you have any questions, post it in the comment section. But anybody who's not had their blood sugar tested in the past 2 years or 3 years, even a year, and if you have a family history, please schedule that appointment, right? Please, check in with your family doctor. Please schedule your appointment and please get your blood sugar tested, right? So I am going to talk about general diabetes, and pre-diabetes is also something that's very common, right? So till the time people have full-fledged diabetes, right, they also have something called a pre-diabetic stage where the blood sugar keeps on being imbalanced for a long time. So you might have high blood sugar, your body is really trying to cope hard, but it's not developed into full-fledged diabetes, right? And pre-diabetes, up to 30% of the people develop type 2 diabetes within 5 years. Now, the good news is that via diet and lifestyle, you can reverse a lot of changes that you've done to your body if you catch it earlier. So when we talk about type 2 specifically, it's a lifestyle disease, it's a dietary issue as well. So definitely, if you are, you can definitely control. Once you start controlling your diet, once you start controlling your lifestyle, your blood sugar starts getting way more balanced in type 1, because your actual cells in the body have been destroyed, which secrete insulin. You cannot really reverse that. So you might need insulin for most of your life. But if you start generally eating healthy, right, you start eating a diet that's rich in antioxidants, you're going to undo a lot of damage that high blood sugar or diabetes wreaks on your body, right? So let's get into the main topic, right? So let's get into, diabetes, and let's get into the symptoms first, right? So it is a metabolic issue, right? So it is a metabolic issue that is related to our hormone insulin, right? And diabetes symptoms are usually a result of a higher than normal glucose level in your blood. When it comes to type 1 diabetes, it suddenly hits you. The symptoms develop really sooner, right? And most people are detected with it at younger age. So juvenile diabetes, having, type 1 diabetes in kids is pretty, detected pretty earlier. And this can be happen because of fainting episodes, or, some that could also be common with them. Type 1 diabetes causes a lot of severe symptoms. Type 2 diabetes, you can sometimes see the symptoms, which could also be minimal at some times. These are not diagnosed as easily, right? So the one thing is that excess blood sugar can wreak a lot of havoc on your body. It can actually damage your nerve fibers as well. It can also damage your blood vessels. So when we talk about blood vessels in your heart, or when we're talking about your eyes, when we're talking about nerve sensation in your hands and legs and the issues with your circulation, that all can happen when you have high amounts of blood sugar because of diabetes, right? So high blood sugar is known as hyperglycemia, and that's one of the telltale signs of diabetes, right? So if it's untreated, then you can have lots of issues. Some complications are coronary heart disease, getting heart attacks, blindness because of diabetic retinopathy, kidney issues, kidney failure because of diabetic nephropathy. A lot of people, women, struggle with getting pregnant or maintaining the pregnancy, right? And there's also vision loss, there are digestive upsets. So there's lots of different symptoms. And there's another category of diabetes where, you could have gestational diabetes. So when you're pregnant as a woman, your blood sugar could be really high, right? And that's gestational diabetes. And sometimes that can resolve later in life. So I've also seen clients, who are who had high blood sugar because of certain issues in the body during pregnancy, because during pregnancy, because of the other hormones, things can be a little different. It's not a normal state of pregnancy though. So but sometimes that gestational diabetes can either lead to diabetes or resolve by itself, right? So let's start talking about the symptoms. Yeah, so I'm talking about type 1, type 2. I'm going to talk about the symptoms as well. I'm just going to say a quick hi to Suman is here, Pooja is here, and let's talk about the symptoms. So, common symptoms of type 1 diabetes, right? So, if you are having increased thirst and if you have an extremely dry mouth, right? So, extreme thirst is known as polydipsia, and there's also polyphagia where you're extremely hungry, right? Even if you've eaten something, you're like, I'm hungry, I just need food, right? And then sometimes you're also having loss of focus or you have trouble concentrating because you haven't eaten at all. Any kind of blurred vision, any kind of vision that's worsening could also be a sign that you have type 1 diabetes. Fatigue, so you are extremely tired, and having high blood sugar, especially with type 1, has also been linked to a lot of mental health issues. So extreme anxiety or depression can also occur when your blood sugar goes through extreme highs and lows, and is common with type 1 as well. Slow healing of wounds is another sign. So if you're having frequent infections, or if you have any cuts, if you're having any bruises and your wounds are not getting healed easily, right? So high blood sugar is going to prevent wound healing. So that's why this happens. Unexplained weight changes. So with type 1, a lot of people also start losing weight unexpectedly, right? So because body starts using up alternative stores of fuels stored in the muscles, right? And it's releasing a lot of glucose in the urine. So this is why this happens. There's also heavy breathing could be possible. It could lead to loss of consciousness. There could be nerve damage. So you have tingling sensations in your hands. You have numbness in your hands and feet, right? And this is also common with type 2 diabetes. So when we talk about type 2 diabetes, usually type 2 is developed later in life, so like midlife or older age, and symptoms develop gradually. Like suddenly it's not going to come up. It always, usually shows up pretty late. And people miss the symptoms because you go on thinking you're normal, you haven't checked, you're not having a lot of severe symptoms, and suddenly one fine day, you go for your blood test. In 5 years you haven't seen your doctor, and suddenly you're like, okay, my sugar is really high, right? So chronically dry, itchy skin could be one of the sign. You get patches of dark velvety skin in the folds, right? So getting any kind of, dark patches in your neck, it shows an impaired blood sugar metabolism, right? So if you're getting like that dark patches here, or if you're getting a lot of skin tags, right? So skin tags are also a sign that your blood sugar metabolism is impaired. Frequent infections, a lot of yeast infections, a lot of infections in the groin region underneath your breast, so any sweaty areas in the body, if you're having infections, that's also one sign. And there's weight gain in type 2 diabetes typically. There could be numbness, tingling in the hands and feet, and again, you're really tired. There could also be sexual dysfunction, so loss of libido, reproductive problems are very common. Erectile dysfunction is common in women. Vaginal dryness is also very common, right? So these are a few symptoms of type 1 as well as type 2 diabetes. Just gonna quickly look at some questions. Yeah, I think I talked about type 1 versus type 2. So when we talk about Ayurveda, right? So when we talk about Ayurveda, there are different kinds of prameha is one of the diseases, which is mentioned as one of the 8 like worst conditions that could happen to you, right? And out of that, prameha means like you're urinating lots of quantity, right, of urine, and that can be cloudy urine as well. And when that urine becomes like, it smells like honey, right, or it becomes sweet, that's known as madhumeha, right? So that's the Ayurvedic equivalent. And in this there is, usually hyperglycemia once again, right? And when we talk about pramehas, there are 20 of them, right? So some of them are kapha related, some of them are pitta related, some of them are vata related, but usually that's how we diagnose it. So depending on each individual, are they losing weight, are they gaining weight, what are the other symptoms as well. And on that basis we are going to treat ayurvedically. So whether it's accompanied by pitta or whether there's vata involvement, so that's what we talk about. Any questions so far for anyone? So one of the questions I get most commonly is, that, okay, I have a family history of diabetes, right? And am I going to develop diabetes? Or if I have diabetes already and I'm taking certain medications, what is the use for maintaining, my diet and lifestyle if I'm already taking the medication, right? So one of the things is you have to realize is when we talk about a family history, right? So there's something called genotype, there's something called phenotype. The genotype is your genetic structure, which you already have, but the phenotype depends on your diet and lifestyle, right? So that has the ability to turn certain genes on and certain genes off. So if you have a history of diabetes and if you're following a really bad diet, of course you're going to develop, diabetes at some point in your life, unless you're really lucky to get away without it. So you have to be extremely careful. The other thing that comes when we talk about a strong family history is, people who live together have the same habits, and people who live together, families have the same dietary as well as lifestyle habits, right? So if you know any of your friends, you might know a family who's athletic and who's really into sports, and then another family, who might be like complete foodies and they absolutely love food and they don't exercise probably, right? So your diet is also something that's very connected with your close family. You learn your eating behaviors, you learn your food behaviors, and that also plays a huge role when it comes to manifestation of any diseases, right? So whether we're talking about diabetes now, whether we're talking about blood pressure, or whether we're talking about any other conditions which are related to diet, so you have to take extreme care if you have a family history, because if you really maintain your health, if you really take care of your diet and lifestyle, you're going to do so much better, right? And you have to focus on prevention of any kind of conditions and make sure you're as healthy as possible. Now, coming to a person who's taking medications, I have so many clients who are taking metformin. I have so many clients who are taking, different medications. So even though you're taking medications, right? If you have a poor diet as well as a lifestyle, the food that you're eating, the poor food choices that you're making are going to create a lot of impact on your body. So sugar itself acts as an oxidant. It does a lot of damage in your body. And when you're having excess refined foods, it's going to double up the damage in your arteries. It's going to double up the damage in your nerve, right? So that is when you really have to make a better lifestyle choice and a better dietary choice, and really see that even if you're taking medications, if I just control my diet and lifestyle or start exercising, I'm going to not develop the complications, right? So instead of ignoring it, take everything as an opportunity to make yourself better, right? So just because you are taking medication doesn't mean you're kind of doomed for life. But also see what best can you do yourself to prevent adding on too many medications, or um, developing any kind of complications of diabetes. So this is something that's extremely important for people to know. I had been working with a client a few years back, probably 3 years back, and it was one of my best clients. So he was nearing his 50th birthday, and 50 was like a big marker for him, right? And he was on prescription drugs, and he was like, I don't want to feel like this, I'm all achy, I'm really tired, I'm really exhausted all the time, I have no energy. And he had a busy job, he was into real estate, he had a busy job, so he was like, I'm not going to be able to live like this for a long time. I want to be healthy. So he decided, he had this resolve, and we started working together. And I did not change any of the medications because that's out of my scope of practice. So I don't really work with medication. Like, I work with people taking medications, but I don't advise you to stop them or change them because that's out of my scope of practice. But one thing we did was we changed his diet, we changed his lifestyle, And from a blood sugar of 14, he came down to about 5.5. It took a span of, I think, 3 or 4 months, and he was recording every single day. And there was like a gradual decrease in the blood sugar. So that was an amazing, example in front of my own eyes, because he was very diligent. He was like recording everything, and I still have those sheets in my clinic, in his files. And it is pretty amazing to see that even though you're taking medication and you feel that your blood sugar is uncontrolled, if you change your diet and lifestyle, you can start bringing your body back to normal, and you can start controlling, your blood sugar. Any other questions for people? Uh, So I'm going to talk a little bit about, certain skin issues and certain things people don't discuss. So because we're talking about different complications, I'm just going to take a little bit more time and share that as well. So when we talk about complications, there's diabetic neuropathy where your nerves can get damaged, right? So especially peripheral neuropathy is like nerves in your periphery, like your hands and feet, right? And diabetes can also affect your organs, certain organs which are under autonomic control. So your bladder, your intestinal tract, genitals, and it could also decrease the sensations in your body, right? And this is one of the reasons. So if you have impaired sensations in your hands and feet, if you have a wound, you're not even going to realize that. And that's how people start developing ulcers, like diabetic ulcers and non-healing wounds. And that can also lead to different kinds of complications. So what are some signs of nerve damage caused by diabetes? You can have tingling, or you can have pins and needles, right? You can have stabbing, you can have burning or shooting pains. Your skin might feel sensitive to hot or cold. You could have muscle aches, you could have muscle weakness, you could have unsteadiness. So if you're getting off balance and you're just feeling unsteady, that could be one of the things. Sometimes diabetic complications can also cause a lot of palpitations, rapid heartbeats. You could have trouble sleeping. You sweat a lot. That's one sign. So there are also changes in perspiration. There could be different injuries, and digestion wise, this thing also goes missed, that you have, frequent stomach bloating or constipation or diarrhea or heartburn. You could have nausea. Sometimes people also have skin related symptoms, right? So they could have rashes or infections, and that are like really itchy and swollen and hot, red, painful infections, or rashes. There could be bacterial or yeast infections. So something like even vaginal yeast infections are extremely common in a lot of women that I see who have imbalanced blood sugars or are diagnosed with diabetes, right? So fungal infections, we talk about candida, we talk about jock's itch or ringworm. So those are also pretty common. And there could also be what we call folliculitis. So your hair follicles can get infected as well. So those are also some of the complications. Then eye related diabetes symptoms, so one of the biggest risk factors is that you could develop eye problems that can also lead to any vision loss or blindness, right? So it usually, affects the outer tough membrane of the eyes. And you could also have macular degeneration. So you have to be careful about it. I think I have a question I'm going to talk about. Do you have a healthy plan for healthy eating? So okay, so Harsha, diet plan for healthy eating, yes, but depending on your blood sugar, right? So depending on your blood sugar, depending on your history, depending on what your weight is, I create a plan for you. So there is no one plan that fits everyone. In Ayurveda, we talk about um, like one size does not fit all. We look at your dosh prakriti, like your body type. We look at your diet, we look at your lifestyle, and then I definitely design meal plans for people, and I work one on one with people. So if you are interested, you can just message me, and I'll be more than happy to set up a free 15-minute consultation. We can talk more, and if you are okay with it, we can go ahead with that, right? So It's borderline. I'm not a diabetic yet, but have it under control with diet and food. Yeah, so that is important. So controlling with diet, controlling with food is extremely important. So Harsha, in tomorrow's video, I'm going to talk about dietary strategies. I'm also going to talk about the one taste that's missing in everybody's diet, and that can help you control blood sugar. So if you want to learn more, watch my video tomorrow, right? The video on Friday, so Tuesday, no, the video on Thursday, sorry. The video on Thursday, I'm going to discuss about lifestyle, right? So I'm going to talk everything about managing your lifestyle, stress management, and the specific one. So I'm going to discuss that as well. So healthy plan, I'm going to talk about that. If you want one-on-one, feel free to connect with me. Amita is asking me, can you go off medication and reverse diabetes with just diet and exercise? Again, that would really depend on what or where your blood sugar is, right? So legally I cannot ask you to go off any medication, but I do work with clients to help balance their blood sugar. The medication is you work with your doctor to change the dosages, right? So it's out of my scope of practice in Canada. I take that very seriously. I always work within my scope, but I do work alongside with your healthcare practitioners, your primary healthcare practitioner, and we can definitely work with it. So feel free to just message me and we can discuss more, because certain things, there's no generalized yes or no answer. You have to see the history, right? So if you've had diabetes type 1, that's not really reversible. But if you have type 2, right? So if your cells are destroyed, in the islets of Langerhans and your pancreas that secrete your insulin, um, there's very few chances of regenerating it, right? But type 2, definitely with diet and lifestyle. And if you just started the medication, we can definitely work with it. Is there any Ayurvedic blood sugar? There are lots of Ayurvedic medicines, Kalpain or Sejal, I think it's Sejal. So there are lots of Ayurvedic, herbs. There are lots of Ayurvedic medicines. The most popular ones are bitter melon, there's neem. There are certain specific formulations like Vasant Kusumakar. But again, there's no one size fits all, right? And with diabetes, you have to be a little bit careful, because you don't want to take something that's going to extremely suddenly drop your blood sugar too low, right? So feel free to get in touch with me and we can discuss more. But that's the one thing about diabetes. If you start controlling, listen to my videos, like join me tomorrow, same time, 8 o'clock. I'll be sharing a lot about diet, right? And diet itself is extremely powerful, and you'll start feeling better. You'll start getting a lot of energy from your foods. And I'm going to talk about specifics. So I'm going to discuss glycemic index, glycemic load, which might sound foreign to you, but it'll give you a lot of information on how to pick and choose foods, right? And in today's world, we are all addicted to sugars. Sugar sneaks into our diets in different ways. If you go out for dinner, if you have something, there's always a sweet or a dessert. So we all have poor diets unless we're trying extremely hard to have a good diet, right? So even refined foods, if you haven't seen my videos, go back to my previous videos on blood sugar, on sugar, right? Sugar, why it's poisonous for you. And I've also spoken about sugar alternatives. So if you have a hard time, going to my Facebook page, what I can do is, here is my YouTube channel that I'm just going to quickly share with you guys. Everything that I share is live streamed on YouTube as well. So, and YouTube is easy for everyone to just search, so go back to the YouTube channel, go look at my previous videos on sugar, and you'll get lots more information, right? So this might seem incomplete if you haven't seen the other videos. So please, check that out as well. I'm going to go to Uttamji's question and talk a little bit about understanding type 2 diabetes, right? So when we talk about type 1 diabetes, that's typically like immune related. So your cells are destroyed. That's why you don't have insulin, right? So insulin is your naturally occurring hormone, which is going to balance your blood sugar, right? So when you eat something that's sugary, insulin kind of attaches to your cells. The cells start accepting glucose, start using that sugar for their activities. But when you don't have When you have type 2 diabetes, you actually, your body becomes resistant to insulin. It's not using the hormone efficiently, right? So initially your pancreas is going to work extremely harder and even push, it's going to try sending more insulin in your body, because your cells are not responding to it, right? And eventually this can also damage the cells in your pancreas, right? So eventually you will not be able to produce insulin, right? So that can also happen. So there could be cell dysfunction, or there could be issues with cell signaling and regulation as well, right? So certain people liver can produce a lot of glucose, and there could also be genetic predisposition, as I mentioned before. So there are different kinds of factors when we talk about type 1 and type 2. And again, the symptoms, if you want me to go over it, there's like constant hunger, lack of energy is common, fatigue is common. Type 2, sometimes there could be weight gain. Typically, there's weight loss, excessive thirst, and excessive, hunger are the main signs. We call it polyphagia, polydipsia, and frequent urination. If you're going to the washroom constantly, your bladder um, is getting your is full constantly, dry mouth, itchy skin, blurry infection. If you had these symptoms for a long time without even realizing, sometimes you might have yeast infection, sometimes you have slow healing wounds, right? So these are a few ways that diabetes type 2 could present itself. So I hope that answers most of your questions. You'll get a lot more clarity in the next two videos, because tomorrow I'm going to talk about diet. As I mentioned, I'll be talking about the specific ones, and the day after I'll be discussing a lot of um, lifestyle strategies. So in Ayurveda, we call something as clade. So there's the water, uh, like it's very hard to explain certain concepts, but one of the things that you can notice in your body is you start feeling a little bit stickier in the body, or your hair starts getting matted or knotted easily. So these are the prodromal symptoms, what we call in Ayurveda, right? So your teeth might start feeling like there's a lot of plaque accumulating and all that. So those also indicate that you have imbalanced blood sugar levels, right? And in women, like when we talk about type 2 diabetes, right, when we talk about that insulin resistance, there's also a thing called metabolic syndrome, which is like a triad of diabetes. Then you have also pressure, right? And you could also have heart disease. And something like PCOS, obesity, sorry, not heart disease, obesity, which predisposes you to heart disease, right? So there's blood sugar issues. So you have diabetes, you also have high blood pressure, diabetes, as well as obesity, right? And obesity itself is a big risk factor. So if you are having type 2 diabetes, right, if you have excess fat in your body, with the type 2, it's going to create more complications for you and give you a lot of harder time, So that's something to keep in mind. So I hope you liked the video today. I'll be back tomorrow, same time, 8 o'clock, and tomorrow we'll be discussing a lot about diet and lifestyle, right? So if you like this video, please share it with your friends, or please tag your friends in the video so they can also benefit. If you know someone who's a diabetic or who has a strong family history of diabetes, and first thing, ask them to get it checked. If they haven't got their blood sugar checked in a while, you can book a appointment with your family doctor, and the family doctor can definitely guide you for the tests and help you run the tests, right? So do that for sure. And if you have any questions, or if you really have a poor diet or lifestyle and you're deciding to be healthy, feel free to get in touch with me. I do offer 15-minute free consultations where we can actually sit down and talk about your condition. And I do work with people to create one-on-one dietary plans, as well as Ayurvedic consultation. And even with food changes, I've had a lot of success. So every single day, I hear some amazing stories in my practice, and that's why I do what I do, right? So thank you all for watching this live. I'll be back tomorrow, and please check out my YouTube channel. Please check out the other videos, so you'll find, like, these are like the different aspects of the same puzzle, right? So when we talk about diabetes, you have to understand blood sugar, you have to understand even refined sugar and sugars and how they impact your body, and then you can start your healing journey. So please feel free to check out those videos, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Till then, have a fantastic day. Oh, you're most welcome, Harsha. I hope you enjoy that too. And I have posted the video for tomorrow as well. So if you go onto my Facebook page, there'll be a link. So you can also post your questions. So if you have certain questions about diet that you are thinking, as long as it's a general question, I can 100% answer it, right? So thank you all again for watching. I really appreciate it. I know I haven't been super regular. I've been really busy. A little update on my garden. My garden is doing extremely well. I'm going to post some pictures as well soon. So thank you once again and have a fantastic night. I'll see you all tomorrow, 8 o'clock. Bye for now.